Here's an album called Smiley Smile by the Beach Boys. A different sound for the group this time, however, and I think you'll really find it interesting. But before I play it for you, I'm happy to say that the head man of the Beach Boys, Brian Wilson, is on the line with me right now. How are you, Brian?
Fine. How are you, Jack?
Fine, thanks. Now, about this album, Brian, you've done some unusual things here. For one thing, in addition to the kind of music you've recorded, you've eliminated the echo effects so often used in recording.
Well, that's true, because we didn't have an echo chamber at the studio, and we just sort of liked the sound without echo, so most of it ended up without echo, you know?
By studio, you mean the studio at your home, isn't that right?
Most of it, yeah.
Is this sound and material an indication of things to come for such groups as your Beach Boys?
Well, I don't know. I just think it's not really an indication of things to come for us or anything. It's just, we just had a particular atmosphere, you know, that we were working in, inspired that particular kind of things that were on the album.
Uh-huh.
We, did it in 3 weeks. We had about 6 months before that we were doing different things, but we jumped.
Uh-huh.
And ended up doing the whole thing here at the house with a sort of an entirely different mood and approach than we originally started out, you know.
Mm-hmm. Well, Brian, I'm going to give our listeners a sample of this Smiley Smile album of yours right about here. And this is one you call With Me Tonight. Here are the Beach Boys.
On and on she go dum-be-doo-da. On and on she go dum-be-doo. On and on she go dum-be-doo-da. On and on she go dum-be-doo. On and on she go dum-be-doo-da. On and on she go dum-be-doo.
Good.
On and on you go dum-be-doo-da. On and on you go dum-be-doo. With me tonight, I know you're with me tonight. You're with me tonight, I know you're with me tonight. For sure you're with me tonight, I'm sure you're with me tonight. On and on you go dum-be-doo-da. On and on you go dum-be-doo. With me tonight, I know you're with me tonight. With me tonight, I know you're with me tonight. For sure you're with me tonight, I know you're with me tonight. On and on you go dum-be-doo-da. On and on you go dum-be-doo. On and on you go dum-be-doo-da. On and on you go dum-be-doo. With me tonight, I know. On and on she go dum-be-doo. On and on she go dum-be-doo.
I was surprised to find out from other guys and other members of the Beach Boys that you felt like Smiley was easy. That as I understand it, it was going to be sort of a big production thing, and then about midway through, you decided, no, why should because the album production thing is in, why do one? And you pulled back and made it simpler. But I think it's one of the most complicated albums in the pop field, like things like the wind chime thing. Is that what it's called?
Yeah, wind chimes.
Yeah, well, that's...
We pulled out of that production pace merely because I was about ready to die.
Right.
I was trying so hard. And so all of a sudden, I just decided not to try anymore, and not try to do such great things, such big musical things.
Right.
All of a sudden. And we had so much fun. The Smiley Smile era was so great. It was unbelievable. Personally, spiritually, everything.
Sure would like to have a little pet in Hawaii.
Why wasn't it released in its original form?
Because it was just too much. It was, the group couldn't handle it at that time. We didn't have the energy, and we just, it just became too much of a hassle in the scene. It's kind of.
You mean to finish it on the scale you'd started it?
Yeah, it just didn't turn out. It just became too much, and so we didn't do it.
Some of that surfaced on Smiley Smile.
Different form, completely.
In different, nothing surfaced in exactly the same form?
No.
Nothing at all?
Nothing. It was really, that was the first thing we ever did at Brian's.
What, Smiley Smile?
Was Smiley, yeah. And Jim Lockhart, who's a really great engineer, set up the thing for us, and we just, it was like sort of like a head arrangement type of thing, just really simple.
How long did that take to do?
Oh, not very long.
But was Brian still the producer of Smiley Smile?
Oh, most definitely.
Yeah. By the sea, that's where I'll build a pad in Hawaii.
Hey everybody, welcome to part 14 of my Beach Boys album Deep Dive series, and today I am going to be talking about their 12th studio album, Smiley Smile. It was released on September 18th, 1967, and only got to number 41 on the U.S. chart. So this began a precipitous decline in the Beach Boys' popularity in America. In the UK, it reached number 9, and so the Beach Boys were still very popular overseas, but in the U.S., they were seen as passé. They were still seen as that group with the striped shirts who still sang about surfing and beaches and just stuff that just seemed from a bygone era. It was the psychedelic era, you had flower power, and the Beach Boys all of a sudden, almost overnight, almost as soon as the Smile Project was abandoned, the Beach Boys fell out of favor. So after Brian abandoned the Smile Project, the Beach Boys needed some kind of album, but they knew they didn't want an over-the-top production. Not only didn't they have time for it, but they didn't want to go through that nightmare again. So they went to Brian Wilson's home studio, and over the period of 6 weeks, recorded the songs that came to make up Smiley Smile. Now, there are some songs in radically different versions that appeared on Smiley Smile. I think the closest songs that were Smile originals was probably Heroes and Villains, and to an extent Vegetables. Those two songs, I think, bear the closest similarity to their counterparts on the Smile album. But songs like Wonderful, songs like Wind Chimes are almost unrecognizable on Smiley Smile. And I think the unfortunate thing about Smiley Smile is everybody compares it to Smile. And it was really unfair for the Beach Boys because a lot of the public hadn't even heard the Smile album, and yet there was this reputation that it had as the most brilliant album ever, even though a lot of people hadn't heard a note of the music. And Smiley Smile, even today, people consider it sort of a compromise. Like, well, Smile didn't work out, so they put out that piece of crap album, Smiley Smile. And it's really unfair because Smiley Smile is a tremendous album, and it deserves to be recognized on its own merits and considered on its own merits rather than what it wasn't, which was the Smile Project, the elaborate follow-up to the Pet Sounds album. So, starts off with Heroes and Villains, which we covered a bit in the last Smile episode. This version is a little more concise, a little tighter. I think it's a great single. I love this version of it. Not that I don't hate the In the Cantina version, the longer version that's on Smile, but I just feel like this version works better. I think the In the Cantina version of Heroes and Villains that we got on the Smile sessions, it's, I think, a little too long. There's some comedy elements that just don't work for me. So I much prefer this version than the version we got on Smile. And the same for Vegetables. Vegetables is a great song, and I like this version much better than I like the Smile version.
He came in with Derek Taylor to a studio that we were in one night in 1967, and it was on that night that he played for my wife and I, She's Leaving Home. My wife cried and everything. It was a bunch of tears, you know. But when he walked in, he had these beautiful patent leather shoes, red patent leather shoes, and a white suit. He looked so cool, you know. And we said, "You want some vegetables?" We were cutting a song called Vegetables. We were all chewing on vegetables just to get the mood. And he started chewing on a carrot.
I'm gonna be around my vegetables. I'm gonna chow down my vegetables. I love you most of all, my favorite vegetable. If you brought a big brown bag of them home, I'd jump up and down and hope you'd toss me a carrot. I'm gonna keep well my vegetables, cart off and sell my vegetables. I love you most of all, my favorite vegetable. Oh, table veggie. I tried to kick the ball, but my tenny flew right off. I'm red as a beet, 'cause I'm so embarrassed. Oh, yeah. Jump, 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 do-do-do-do-do-do, pop, 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 do-do-do-do-do-do. I know that you feel better when you send us in your letter and tell us the name of your favorite vegetable. I know that you feel better when you send us in your letter and tell us the name of your favorite vegetable.
Then we have the song Fall Breaks Back to Winter, the Woody Woodpecker Symphony. And this began as the Elements, the Fire Suite on the Smile album. In here, it's a much more stripped down version. All the versions on here, this is a much more lo-fi stripped down album than Smile was. The Beach Boys decided that they were just going to take it back to when they were a band. Remember way back when the Beach Boys actually played all the instruments on their album? So that's what they're kind of taking it back to. They dispensed with all of the wrecking crew, all of the sophisticated arrangements, and they just took it back to basics. And I think that's one of the things that I love about this album is it's just the Beach Boys. It's not all those session musicians and maybe a Beach Boy playing here or there. And so this version that we have on here, it's a bit odd. One of the things about this album, it is so strange. And I mean that in a positive way, but it's just one of the quirkiest, most interesting albums that the Beach Boys ever released. And a song like Fall Breaks Back to Winter and the next song, She's Going Bald, are absolutely the weirdest songs on any Beach Boys album. And that's really saying a lot. Fall Breaks Back to Winter, you've got kind of the melodic line from Fire, and you've got this like Woody Woodpecker pecking throughout the song. You've got what sounds, I think, like a melodeon playing, and then it just kind of keeps repeating over and over on loop. It's actually kind of cool. It doesn't go on too long, and I love just the fact that it's so weird. And then we have what I got to imagine was Brian Wilson's original intent for the Smile album, kind of like a comedy goofball song, which is what She's Going Bald is.
Silken hair, more silken hair fell on her face, and no wind was blowing. Silken hair, more silken hair lay near her pillbox down at her feet. She'd been on a trip. I peeked in and I saw she'd lost her hair. I thought I would tell. She was going when she saw her shining forehead didn't stop. She swooned to the ground. Really flipped her way. So hard I blew my mind. I blew my cool. I blew myself over. Oh, 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 oh.
Yeah, blow. What a blow. Yeah, blow.
You got Brian Wilson singing about some girl who's losing her hair, and then it evolves into where they're speeding up like their voices. It's just goofy. There's no other word for it. And then kind of you got that piano reprise where Ain't Nothing Upside Your Head part with the piano. The Beach Boys really had nothing to lose at this point, and that's why they could release a song like this, because the ship had already sailed. Smile was not coming out. The Beatles had come out with Sgt. Pepper. The Beach Boys were never going to be able to compete with Sgt. Pepper. So they're like, we have nothing to lose. Let's just put out an album that we want to put out, no matter how weird it sounds, no matter how goofy, no matter how lo-fi. Expectations were so high after Pet Sounds and Good Vibrations came out for the next Brian Wilson masterpiece. And so when Smiley Smile hit the shops, there was kind of a collective, what the hell is this? And it seems like the Beach Boys didn't care whether the stuff on this album was commercial or not. They knew Heroes and Villains, the great single, was going to be on here. They knew Good Vibrations was going to be on here. So you already had the hits. And I feel like they got very experimental in their own way with the rest of these songs. And She's Going Bald is definitely fits that bill. It's really bizarre, but I kind of like it. Then we have Little Pad, which is more or less an instrumental. I mean, you do have some humming and some do-do-do-do-do, but there's really not much lyric beyond that. But it's such a calm, chill vibe for this song. It's a perfect song for sitting on the beach, watching the sunset. I love their chill harmonies on here, and I love like the ukulele that's playing. Everything about this song works for me, and it's a perfect way to bring to a close side one. Then kicking off side two, we have Good Vibrations, which we've already talked about. That was going to be on the next Beach Boys album, no matter what, whether it was Smile, Smiley Smile, Smiley, 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 Smile. Good Vibrations, Capitol insisted had to be on the next album. Then we have a great harmony piece, With Me Tonight, which again showcases the Beach Boys vocals. Love this. There's really not much in the way of instruments on here. I think there's like an organ that's played very softly, but it's a great harmonic, almost a cappella piece, and I just love it. Then we got Wind Chimes, which is almost like a horror movie version compared to what was on the Smile, which was very gentle. You had the vibraphone. It was a very calm kind of piece of music, and Wind Chimes is really kind of disconcerting. It's a little bit startling. It's a little harsher than the Smile version. I prefer the Smile version, not gonna lie, but I don't hate this version. But the vocals themselves are just a little bizarre and weird. They're taking some chances with their vocal harmonics. It's kind of got like a surrealistic vibe to it. I don't know how else to explain it, but you know, it's fine. I prefer the Smile version, but this one's okay too. Then we have Getting Hungry with that great organ intro, and it's a song that they wrote specifically for the Smiley Smile album, and it's okay. It's kind of a funky little organ-based rocker. Not one of their best, but I think it works fine in the context of this album. Next song is Wonderful, which again sounds so different from the Smile version.
She belongs there, left with her liberty, never known as a non-believer. She laughs and stays in the wonderful. She knew how to gather the forest when God reached softly and moved her body. One golden locket, quite young and loving her mother and farther down the path was a mystery. Through the recess, the chalk and numbers, a boy bumped into her one.
It's a way more playful version of Wonderful than the more stoic version that we got on Smile. You got kind of some silly vocals, and it's different harmonies than we've had before on Beach Boys album. It's almost a little whimsical, I guess maybe is the word that I want to use. But it's a cool version. I like this completely different arrangement. You've got that section where it's almost kind of like a horror movie, like rah, 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 which is a little bit jarring, but cool nonetheless. I think it's a great song. I almost prefer this a little bit more just because it doesn't take itself as seriously as the Smile version of it does, but there are people who will disagree, but anyway. And the last song is Whistle In, which has got some whistling on it. I love this. It's almost like a sound experiment. Feels like it was going to be a B-side or something, and then they resurrected it and just threw it here on the last part of the album. But I love it. It's just the same lyric repeated over and over.
Dun, 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 dun. Whistling. Remember the day, remember the night, all day long. Whistling. Remember the day, remember the night, all day long. Whistling. Remember the day, remember the night, all day long. Whistling. Remember the day.
Anyway, that's the album. That is it. But it's a very cool album. If you only know Smile and you haven't checked out Smiley Smile, or if you've never heard either, check out Smiley Smile and forget about Pet Sounds, forget about Good Vibrations when you're listening to it, and take it for what it is, which is a very clever, very, maybe in some ways rushed, but it's a lo-fi album. It's the Beach Boys just kind of having fun. Like, okay, sort of like we blew it in the 60s. Smile didn't come out. We didn't come out with our answer to Sgt. Pepper, but we're just going to have fun with it. So anyway, I've got two versions of it. This is my mono copy on the Brother Records label. And then I've got a stereo copy as well, also on the Brother Records label. So let me know what you think of this album, and whether you like it more than Smile, less than Smile, or how do you think it measures up to the Smile album. And next time we'll be talking a little bit about some Wild Honey. Take care.